Hello to all viewers. Hello to everyone. I am Shiloh, the last scribe for the house of Jacob. I am a messenger and a true servant of the Almighty. November 29, 2019 is the Almighty's judgment day upon all things on the earth. On that day, the Almighty will reveal himself, and everyone will receive life or death. On that day, he will declare war against all gods, goddesses, godlike ones, and against everything that he considers to be evil. On that day, he will gather his people together wherever they may be, and they will receive their inheritance. This video is to open your eyes and give you understanding about some of the laws the Almighty established through Moses for the house of Jacob. This is part 2 of my video titled, Bringing the Laws of the Almighty Out of the Darkness of Dishonor into the Light of Honor. In order to interpret the Holy Bible scriptures, you need to use the Strong's Concordance Exhaustive Bible. This book contains the recorded definitions for all the words in the Holy Bible. Let's begin. Exodus 22 and 28 says, "The Almighty, your all-supreme ruler, is the all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. There is a bitter curse upon all the gods, goddesses, angels, rulers, godlike ones, and godly ones of the Elohim, and it is not insignificant. You will not treat their curse lightly. You will not lighten the value of their curse. You will not make their curse to be less despicable. You will not move the curse that is upon them from dishonor. You will not put honor upon the bitter curse that is upon them. You will not make it easier for them. You will not cause yourselves to be at ease with them. You will not make the king of your people, who will rise up like water vapor into the clouds, to be a curse. You will not make him, the exalted one of your people, to be a curse. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler." Exodus 23 and 1 says, "The Almighty, your all-supreme ruler, is the all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. You will not accept or support any report of idolatry. You will not accept or support falsehood or worthless conduct. You will not accept or support a lying report, rumor, or announcement that has become famous by an audience. You will not cause another person to accept or support any report of idolatry or vanity. Do not put your hand with a person hostile toward the Almighty. Do not put your strength with a wicked person who is morally wrong. Do not put your hand with those who are cruel, oppressive, or deal violently. Do not join with them who are guilty of sinning against the Almighty. Do not put forth your strength to be a false recorder of the Almighty's testimony to the people. Do not put forth your power to be a false witness of the Almighty's testimony to the people. Do not put forth your hand to be a false witness to the people. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler." Exodus 23 and 7 says, "The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler, and he is the all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. Remove deception and rebellion far away from yourselves. Keep yourselves far away from a deceiving business or occupation. Keep yourself far away from liars. Keep yourselves far away from false prophets, false testimonies, false covenants, and deceiving powers. Do not testify falsehood. Be far away from performing vain duties. Keep yourselves far away from deceiving promises, false commandments, and false prophecies. Do not ruin the righteous or innocent. Do not murder the righteous and innocent. Do not slaughter them or put them to death. I am that I am, the Almighty, the all-supreme being, the all-supreme ruler, will not justify the wicked. He will not justify those that are actively hostile toward him. He will not justify those persons that he has condemned. He will not justify those persons that are actively guilty of sinning against him. He will not cause a person who is actively wicked to become righteous in conduct and character. He will not cause them to have a righteous cause. He will not cause them to declare righteousness. Those persons who are actively morally wrong will not be caused to be in the right. He will not save those that are actively wicked. I am that I am is the Almighty. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. Exodus 34:14 says, The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. You will bow down and worship no Elohim. The Almighty will not support or aid any rival to himself. The Almighty will revenge himself on all those that have departed away from him. The Almighty is jealous about his name. He is jealous about his people, his honor, his glory, his authority, his covenant, and his reputation. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. Leviticus 19:12 says, The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. You will not swear falsely, or take a false oath, or take a false covenant by the name, the honor, the glory, the reputation, or the authority of the Almighty. You will not take a false oath to honor the authority, the inheritance, nor the name of the Almighty. You will not treat the name, the honor, the glory, the reputation, the authority, the inheritance, nor the name of the Almighty as a common thing. You will not violate or dishonor his covenant. You will not allow the name, the reputation, the honor, the glory, the authority, nor the inheritance of the Almighty to be polluted and defiled by deceit, by falsehood, by lies, or by false prophets who have deceived themselves. I am that I am is the Almighty. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. Leviticus 19:31 says, The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. Do not cast out your respect for the Almighty. Do not have respect for them that practice necromancy. They know how to evoke the ghost of the dead ones. Do not prepare or clear a way for them. Do not turn your respect away from the Almighty. Do not seek to honor and serve a wizard. They are false prophets and necromancers who know how to conjure ghosts. Do not prepare or clear a way for them. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. Leviticus 20:6 says, The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. The soul that turns to follow after necromancers or wizards is unfaithful to the Almighty. That soul has become a cult prostitute and is as a harlot because that soul is committing idolatry. I am that I am, the Almighty. The all-supreme ruler will set his being against that soul. The Almighty will cut that soul off from among his people, and that soul will be destroyed. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. Leviticus 24:16 says, The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. Any person that expresses or appoints the name, the honor, the glory, the authority, the covenant, or the reputation of the Almighty to be hurt or crossed out will surely be put to death. All the congregation will stone this person until they are dead. The same will happen to the stranger if he or she expresses or appoints the name, the honor, the glory, the authority, or the reputation of the Almighty to be hurt or crossed out. All persons guilty of this will surely be put to death. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. Leviticus 25:55 says, The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. The house of Jacob are servants and worshippers who are to honor the Almighty as their all-supreme ruler. The house of Jacob are his servants and worshippers whom he brought forth from out of the land of Egypt. Leviticus 26:1 says, "The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. Carved images and idols have no real value. You will not create and establish idols of good-for-nothing physicians, worthless shepherds, false gods, or of divinations. You will not investigate an idol, then stir yourselves up and bring it on the scene to be established, imposed, or set up as a personal memorial or monument. You will not set up an image of your imagination to be an idol, nor will you carve idols of imagery or carve figures onto your walls to be looked at or bowed down to. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler." Deuteronomy 4:19 says, "The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all earth and its heavens. The Elohim are deceitful, with flattery and smoothness. They have assigned and given the sun, the moon, the stars, even all the host of heaven to be the portion unto all nations under the whole heaven. But the Almighty will remain to be your all-supreme ruler, unless you lift up your eyes unto heaven to see the sun, the moon, the stars, even all the host of heaven, and your desire drives you to worship them and serve them. The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler." Deuteronomy 4:20 says, "The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens, and the Almighty has taken you as his own possession, and brought you forth out of Egypt to be a nation of people he has inherited, as you are this day. And again, at the end of your generations, the Almighty will bring you forth even out of the iron furnace to be a nation of people that he has inherited." Deuteronomy 4:32 says, "The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. Ask about the past time. Ask about the days that were before you. Now ask from one side of the heaven unto the other side, whether there has been any such thing as this great thing we have seen, since the time the Almighty created the species of Adam upon the earth. Ask from one side of heaven unto the other side, if it's been heard of any such thing as this great thing we have seen, since the time the Almighty created the species of Adam upon the earth." Deuteronomy 4:34 says, "The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler. The Almighty is the all-supreme ruler of all the earth and its heavens. Has any Elohim attempted to prove themselves by going and taking themselves a nation of people from the midst of another nation of people with their own mighty power by signs, by wonders, and by war? Has any Elohim attempted to prove themselves by going and taking themselves a nation of people from the midst of another nation of people with a force that stretches out great terrors, according to all that the Almighty, your all-supreme ruler, did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? The Almighty is your all-supreme ruler." This is the end of part 2 of my video titled, "Bringing the Laws of the Almighty Out of the Darkness of Dishonor into the Light of Honor." November 29, 2019 is the day of the Almighty's judgment upon all living things. I am Shiloh, the last scribe for the house of Jacob. Watch my videos, follow me, and discover the recorded truth about the Almighty, his power, his glory, his honor, his reputation, his experiences with, and his message to all individual species of persons on the earth.